thank you very much, Aria, for joining us on Radio Italia on Adelaide.
Thank you for having me. It is always good to come on.
Now, I just said that maybe that surname is known to the listeners, Bolkus. I associate it with the word senator. So you are the daughter of Senator Nick Bolkus, correct?
Yeah, that was my dad. Yeah, absolutely.
So is the politics and the political process, is that been part of the family culture for you?
I'd say, obviously I did learn a lot from seeing dad, but in many ways, when dad was in politics, I was really young and wasn't engaged. And then as he grew older, and I grew older, he was, wasn't that well. So I think I learned from him probably subconsciously growing up, but ultimately I've had the benefit of learning from a lot of people that really respected dad, like Mark Butler, moving forward as I've become an adult.
Yes, so we can move backwards then. So Mark, you mentioned Mark Butler. Was he part of your apprenticeship, so to speak, as a politician?
Yeah, Mark, I spent a lot of time talking to Mark when dad became unwell about things that we could do on our aged care system and our healthcare system, and in things like supporting people that are disadvantaged with access taxis, and then had the opportunity to work with Mark as a federal advisor after I was in the law, which was remarkable. I had the best time, and Mark is a very experienced, very, very capable senior federal minister, so I was very privileged to have had the opportunity to work in him in that team.
Yes, and we've had some conversations with Mark around some very big reforms of the aged care and health sector that he's been presiding over. And you mentioned the law, so you have a legal background before getting involved in politics. What sort of law?
I do. I worked in the law for 7 years, almost 7 years. So I did about 3 years, a little bit more of commercial building and dispute litigation work and some inheritance, so family dispute work in our court system. I was in the courts every day, and then, which was the best. But to be a good advocate and a good litigant, I had to be a good transactional lawyer. So I flipped across to do some energy, mining, and defence MMA work. So worked with big companies like Oz Minerals with So I worked on some really big claims in the energy and mining space with regards to procurements and sovereign capability.
Okay, you just said being in the courts was the best, but what's so important about being in the courts for a lawyer?
Ultimately, in some ways, also what I really like with this job, if you can be really effective in constructing an argument, a smart negotiator and strategic thinker, you can achieve a really good outcome for your client. And there's nothing better than standing up in front of a judge, knowing your case back to front, knowing your position, having consulted with all parties about where you want to land, and achieving a really good outcome for someone that you are fighting for. And that is what I loved about litigation, and also in some ways what I also love about being able to represent my community.
I was going to say that would be excellent training for the political system.
Yeah, without having known that. I do say to a lot of young kids now, you don't have to be a lawyer to study law, but the law sets you up for a range of different things and provides you with a range of skills and critical thinking, which is really useful for life.
Yeah. Okay. And then you entered, we'll go back in a minute to what you said about your conversations with Mark Butler. You entered in policy, you were elected in the last election in March this year, the seat of Colton that was previously held by the Liberal Party. Why do you think, how's it changed over time, apart from your obvious skills?
Yeah, and it's not all due to me, absolutely not all due to me. It's due to a range of things beyond me. But Colton's a seat that has swung over time with regards to the candidate and also who is in power. But prior to Matt, who is a good friend, and I really value all the work that Matt did for our local community while I was growing up there. Paul Kiker was also the previous representative who was a Labor Party person. The two things that I think Paul and Matt have in common is that they're both true locals, they're both truly embedded in the community, and they're both really cared about what was going on. My community is really tight-knit, and they really value, not just being a politician, but also being someone that is going to live there and will value what it is that the changes that you make. So I think that, it's an absolute privilege to follow the both of them. They're both remarkable individuals and have made their own marks in their own ways.
Yes. Could you describe us what's the socio-demographics of the area? And where is it?
So it's Colton is West Beach all the way through to Grange, Lockleys, Fulham Garden, Flinders Park. So we have a very sort of young family demographic coming through Henley and Grange now, with some older, residents that have been there for a longer period of time. And I also have a really strong Italian, not as lots of Greeks, but a really strong Italian community through Fulham Gardens, Lockleys, Kidman Park as well, which is reflected in a lot of our amazing restaurants locally that we have as well. But very lucky to have such a mixed demographic and a community that reflects me as an individual as well, in the sense that obviously my family has grown up there, but Greek background with a little bit of Calabrian.
A little bit Calabrian, okay, interesting. A strong presence, probably. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what are the elements that are most important or touch points for that particular? You've described a fairly diverse electorate, which I'm generally getting when I'm speaking to your colleagues. Not everyone's like that, but what were the big topics that come up when you were campaigning?
My electorate, it really does largely depend on where it is that I'm campaigning. In West Beach and through the coastal part of my electorate, people really care about protecting our coast and about sand management for generations to come, which is not only, I think it's not only an electorate issue, it's a statewide issue. It's a metropolitan beach. It's, for tourism purposes and for local business purposes, it's a really important thing that we can protect. As I move back towards the city portion of my electorate, it becomes more focused on infill and making sure that our local roads and infrastructure keep up with the increasing density that our state is obviously having in the middle of a housing crisis. We need to build more homes, but our communities will become busier. So it's about making sure that my local community can get from A to B safely and without lots of irritation. So I've worked quite hard with regards to those things. In general, the entire electorate, I think, and everyone values access to healthcare. So we've fought hard for things like a 24/7 pharmacy down there to increase access. And I, have always stood by Paul and by Matt, and now as an individual, I always work to support the Western Hospital as well, which is important for that. And then the final thing I think is just local schools. We have an array of amazing local schools and lots of very intelligent local kids that attend all of them.
Interestingly, a few elections ago, Stephen Mulligan told me that the biggest thing that came up all the time was off-street parking, which is not a state responsibility.
No, we have done something to try and help with that, but it is, people do just want to be able to drive to the shops, in a safe way. So that is, I understand that as local as well.
Okay, and when we have regular conversations with Tony Zappia, and apart from the big political issues, I always end up asking him about his committee work, because that's an important part of a politician's life work, and it's not well understood, I don't think, by the general population. What committees or other activities have you started being involved with, since you've only been in Parliament for maybe 2 and a bit months now?
I'm on the crime and so I'm on a couple of committees. They're all very preliminary, and I think that we'll start sitting properly in August, and some of those committees will do a lot, I suppose, of background work. But the role of committees is important. Today we're actually, on that note, in estimates, so it's quite a big week for the government. We handed down our budget, which was the biggest cost of living relief budget a week or so ago, and this is the opportunity for our spending to, I suppose, be hashed out. I'm currently in the estimates committee for child protection with our new minister, and very capable minister, Alice Rolls, downstairs. I've stepped out for half an hour thanks to my colleague, amazing colleague, Lawrence Ben. But today we're just going through, I suppose, the government spending and making sure that everything is accounted for, which she's doing a fantastic job.
Okay, well, Alice Rolls is my new member of Parliament.
Now let's
fantastic. Step back. Estimates Committee. So the Estimates Committee is the committee of MPs that goes through all the elements, the important, fine detail of what's in the budget and how the government spends the money. And you were there today, and thank you for coming out of the committee meeting for this interview. What sort of things were you discussing? You said you were looking at Alice Roll's portfolio.
So what it does is it allows essentially, it provides an opportunity for, in this case, so for the Liberals, the opposition, specifically most of the Liberals in this case, to ask questions with regards to what it is that we're spending money on. Josh Teague was down there, I suppose, asking line by line with regards to what it is that he's most concerned about. With these things, I think what's interesting when you're listening is that ultimately his concerns are reflected in what Alice has picked up and, what she's obviously focusing on. And there's a reason that, Josh is asking the questions and there are budget lines with regards to funding provisions, because they're areas that we know we need to work on. And it's a system that we know, kids, ultimately no one wants, it would be better if there was no job and the system worked perfectly, but it's a system that we need to support. So we'll be down there until about 5:30 today, going through the budget lines with regards to that.
So this is about child protection and what things have been coming up as a matter of concern?
The main thing that comes up is honestly with these things is regards to, I suppose, expenditure and accounting for the surpluses or underspends with regards to whatever the budget line may be. But it's, Alice's, there's clear, solid backing behind what it is, the work that she's doing. And the department have done exceptional work in this space, and the numbers are heading in the right direction. It's a difficult space to break the cycle on, but thanks to our previous Minister, Katrine Hilliard, and the continued work of the current Minister, Alice Rolls, both very capable, they're doing a really good job.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So I guess that's, so you're not specifically focusing on child protection, but you're working on estimates. Are there any other committees that you're working on or special?
No, so we get rostered on. So I was rostered on for the Premier's Estimates Committee yesterday, which we saw the Premier get questioned on some of our local major events, which of course are all...
some are causing some concern, yes.
But, at the end of the day, the major events have a clear, clear impact, net positive impact on the economy. And for our state, it's the first time in a really long time, I've heard people of my generation want to work here, want to stay here, and see opportunities for their kids here. We've got more jobs. The creation, just AUKUS, for example, we don't even know how big that will be. And the impact on this state is, it's nationally, it's a big project nationally, let alone for South Australia. So, there is a lot of talk with regards to the major events, but I do think ultimately, it means, better infrastructure, it means more jobs. It means, our hotels and businesses are, full and thriving. It brings things like, the Michelin star to Adelaide, to South Australia, all of those things. And I think, with each lever that we pull, we can leverage it one step further, and that's a good thing as well.
Yes, well, the Michelin star projects in Australia, I don't think we've heard the outcomes yet, have we?
No, not yet. I keep trying to guess.
Yeah. And are there, have you thought of some areas that you want to pursue, in particularly some topics?
Personally, there's some reasons. I mean, everyone's always got their reasons as to why they get into politics. Personally, for me, it's twofold in a sense. One of them is I would have, I left the law and came into politics because I spent a lot of time as a young person advocating for my father in a health and aged care system. At the age of, Dad had a stroke when I was 23, and I ended up picking up a lot of his business and a lot of his health requirements, and I was essentially his main advocate during the time that he was here. So I feel really strongly about making sure that people can have access to the system and get the support that they need, both in my electorate and broader, across the state. And I think the Labor Party has, which values are embedded in access to healthcare, no matter where you live, no matter your postcode. And that's something I'll always try and support. And the second thing is I've grown up in our local community. So our local, our beaches are really important to me. It's where I start every day. It's where my yayang papu, why they liked living here, because it reminded them of, the islands that they grew up on. And I grew up in our local schools as well. So I love going back and talking to kids now, saying to them, I was here just like you, and now I get to represent us. And, there are so many possibilities for you as well. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of it.
And it's important for them to see role models and examples like that.
Yeah. So I'll always make myself available.
Yeah. So interesting you use the word advocating for your father, for people in the aged care system. And we've just been through this in the last few years with my parents. Where do you see are the areas of importance? Which I guess that was part of what your conversations have been with Mark Butler over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the reforms that we did in the aged care system was off the back of, I suppose, a lot of that advocacy, not from me, but from, Australians. And one thing I saw on the doors in their campaign, just like you mentioned just then, is that everyone has this story. Everyone has a loved one that they've tried to help or are helping and feels it. There's a couple of things. The main thing, overarching problem, I suppose, that we would try and fix with the system is making sure that things connect. So when, you go from one aspect of healthcare to another, the data can transition and families can get the support that they need. But a couple of things that I think have been really good improvements that I helped advocate for is the consistency of care and registered nurses in aged care facilities.
Yes, important.
So, there is always a registered nurse now in an aged care facility. That's obviously a federal matter, but while I was working with Mark, I was really happy to be part of a team that worked to achieve that. And I've had the opportunity with Mark to visit all the resi care facilities down in my electorate, and there is a registered nurse now in all of them all the time. It's important because you need a consistency of care. I think people with elderly parents or, there are baselines that medical practitioners need to know for your parent or for your loved one. We know them, and things like UTIs or whatever it may be, where they start to go a bit up and down, you need to establish a relationship with the individual to understand when they're going a bit either way. So having that level of care and a consistency of care is so important. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Continuity of care.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned your grandparents in the islands. So where do they come from in Greece? I'm guessing all your grandparents from Greece?
They're all from Greece. So my dad's side is from Kastellorizo, so it's an island down south. Yeah, just on the border of Turkey, which I liked to annoy him about a lot growing up. And then my mum's parents are from Mytilene, so Lesbos. But Yaya's dad is Calabrian. During the war, when the soldiers were on the island, I think so Yaya's actually half Calabrian and can speak Calabrian and did a lot of Italian cooking for me growing up as well. Yeah, which was
nice, interesting combination.
Yeah.
And have you visited these places?
Yeah, we used to go. I've still got, so my nonna, who christened me, is over there. So we used to go and stay with her quite frequently. And I would take every opportunity to go back. I'm very much, Australian, and Henley is my home and it will always be. But I do like to go back and, it's the heritage of the young people that I have a lot of respect for as well.
And I understand the language is strongly held, the culture in the Greek community. Do you speak Greek?
I can speak Greek, yes.
You can?
Yes, I can. My sister can't. I spent so much time with my grandparents growing up because Dad and Mum were always at work that I ended up being able to speak Greek, which is the best gift.
Well, actually, Frank Paolini, that I recorded an interview yesterday. I'm going to play it later on. He speaks Italian very well, and he said it's because of his grandparents. They taught him initially, and then he's developed it over time without ever taking any classes. Yes, grandparents are very important in educating, bringing up their children, and bringing on tradition and culture.
Yeah.
And so there's one thing that we mentioned also with Frank yesterday is then this diversity, this aspect of multiculturalism is not obviously top of mind. Well, it is top of mind, but not obviously accepted at the moment in Australian society.
Yeah, I think people are hurting right now, and people want something to blame. And we live in a world where social media and the media there isn't one platform where social media is presented now. It's presented across a range of platforms. And because of algorithms, when you engage with something, that's all you're fed. And you're fed it again and again. And I'm talking about both sides of politics. But I think, my message, I've come obviously from a Greek family and have experience with Dad, who did a lot during the Keating government as migration minister to support and foster the multicultural, not multicultural society that Australia is today. And, I will always be at the position that Australia is better because of skilled and calculated migration. My local businesses are run by immigrants. Our rural, regional and farming communities, our hospitals. My Yayampapu contributed to this society. And, I tell my Yaya that I'm representing the community that she was lucky enough to live in. And she's got dementia and she forgets. Yes. And every time I tell her, she cries because she's so proud that she worked hard. She set up a life for my mum and my dad, both sides, and then they worked hard to set up a life for me. So I understand that people are hurting, and I get that. And I think the important message for governments to have is that we're getting to the real problem here. We're building homes, which is the lever that we have to pull, and we're getting on with the job, and we're not worried about, throwing our arms in the air and blaming things that aren't going to make the real difference, and supporting what makes Australia so strong as well. Did you see the Socceroos last week?
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, lots of immigrants and refugees represented in that group. Okay, sorry, you've. Okay, I'll draw a breath and we can get over this. So yes, well, thank you very much, Aria, for coming in, stepping out of the estimates committee work, and let you get back. We promised to get you back by 4:00. And thank your colleague who was subbing for you.
I will. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you. Ciao, everyone. Thank you.
Ciao.